Well, hello, I'm back, and it's a surprise. I didn't even know. I thought, oh, I'm going to do something next week, and then all this stuff hit me, so I'm back again today for two more videos, and they're different topics. So, yep. Anyway, and I'm glad you liked those. Everybody enjoyed everything. I'm glad. I've been getting some more likes and more people watching, so that's good. It seems to go all over the place, up and down like a roller coaster. So you just never know. And I mean, I just do what there is to do. So there's nothing I can do. It is what it is. But anyway, so that's that. But now, today, this topic, it's related to Christmas in a different kind of way. This was just sort of something that just, landed like just that's how it is. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna do a video about that. So, and it all kind of stems. I was sitting there thinking about this. I went over to the tea room today, so that was a nice treat. And I was sitting there. It was so lovely. Everything was decorated, all the cute little items and everything. And was sitting there sipping, and you start thinking. Your mind wanders, and then was thinking about the nativity set. And for example, when the term manger, a lot of people think that the manger is the here. Let me grab this card and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Um, the Okay, so we know they came to the inn, and all the inns were booked up. There was no room at the inn. How many inns there were, I don't know, but there was no room. I'm sure if there were several inns, they would have tried them all. So, um, there was no room. So, it just says because there was no room at the inn, um, the baby Jesus was laid in a manger, and people kind of gloss over that. So let me grab this now. you know, Sometimes people think like this is the manger. That, I don't know, it doesn't give a name in there. It doesn't say they were like there was a stable with animals and all that. It just says that he was laid in a manger. And the manger is actually this, and I'll explain that. Um, so we we can only assume that they were assuming that because of this, all of this was here, right? The stable or whatever they had back then, it would be like a stable or a barn or whatever, with animals. That's where it all comes from and connects. So, okay. So when I was a little girl, I used to think this was the manger because that's what you hear about. And then you see this picture and you think that's the manger. Then you find out later it's not. The manger is that, honestly, it looks like a cradle. And what it is, let me move this closer. There. What it is, it was a manger is a feeding trough for the animals. Like, it was shaped probably the way they're shaped, the way we see them in the nativity sets. And they had food in there like hay or whatever the animals would eat. That's where they would come and feed. So it was just a structure like that for them to come and eat. And it was conveniently shaped in a way that would work for a baby to lie in there like a cradle. Um, that's just was one of those things. So the nativity scenes, have that. That's actually what that was. The bed where, Jesus is lying, and then the hay makes it soft, which is pretty convenient. And of course, I talked about this before. This is symbolic, a lot of things. But another thing it's symbolic for is, the fact that it's a feeding trough. And, the minute Jesus was born, he was laid in a manger. So I don't think it really hit anybody at the time because they didn't know, but later Jesus makes the comments like he's the bread of life. Um, you know, and other comments to the effect of basically like he's the food, and that all connects to, well, of course, the sacrifice, but also in a spiritual sense, we are feeding on in that way. It's like our source, spiritually, it's coming from Jesus through the Holy Spirit. So that's where we get our spiritual nourishment and strength from. Um, and there are many comments he made about that, that's where we're fed basically. So I didn't make a list for this, but they're in there. So um, like all those comments. Okay, so that got me thinking about the whole fact that Jesus in his whole life, he was an offering. It wasn't just at the time for the atonement and all that, but his whole life was an offering. He lived his whole life in a way that was perfect and sinless and holy, and everything he did was pleasing to the Father. So his whole life was an offering. And that idea just hit me like, him lying in a manger as a baby, just, he is, his whole life is an offering, the one and only offering in that sense. But that's symbolic there. There are so many things that are symbolic. I mean, wow. But anyway, so then that was one thing, but then that led to something else. And that's the fact that, if we're Christians and we are following him, our life is also an offering. It's meant to be an offering in many ways. And when we come and we get saved and all that about the gospel, but we surrender our life to God, and we basically we surrender to God's will for our life. We say, your will, not ours, just like he said, your will be done, not mine, before he went to the cross. He did that all his life. Okay, we won't be perfect, of course. We're not going to be like him. Obviously he could only be the only one to do all that, but we're following him. We're supposed to exemplify him somewhat. Right? So we're supposed to surrender to his will, not ours, in our life. And every day is another form of surrender. This is what I find, And sometimes the ultimate form will be martyrdom. But even if that isn't there, it's still an offering. All our life, we're surrendering to God. Our life is an offering. Um, you know, we are sacrificing for him every day in different ways, and I'll get to that. But so, we surrender our life as an offering to God every day, basically. And we don't know what that's going to look like, many times. So um, there, this is just a quick little rabbit trail here. For instance, there are people who they claim they've come to him and, they've gotten saved and all of this, but, later on down the road, when things in their life don't go their way, they depart, they fall away. Well, they, have all their claims and so-called reasons. Well, God didn't give me blankety blank, the spouse or the child or the money, the job, the career, the house, whatever it is, that they wanted, or somebody died, or somebody got sick, or something happened that wasn't the all paradise type of life, right? Because, surprise, we're not in paradise yet. Yeah, a little thing happened back in the Garden of Eden, which is why things are not perfect right now. And a lot of people, they can't wrap their heads around this. And there's all this banging their head against the wall. Why? 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 Well, newsflash, that's why. Okay, so anyway, they get, oh boy, they get disgruntled and everything because this didn't go their way or that didn't go their way. And you have to stop them and ask them, well, do you want everything to go your way or God's way? Is he serving you or are you serving him? Are you supposed to do his will or is he supposed to do your will? Is he going to follow your program or are you going to follow his plan, right? That's the critical question you got to ask them then. And most of the time, that's what's happened. They have taken back the reins of their life and they want to be in control. And then things don't go their way. And then they get upset and they get off the horse, they fall off the wagon and they take off, all that. Well, this is where the problem started, is they're not surrendering every day. See? So, and again, it's not going to be paradise right now. Okay? When Jesus came, he came to a broken world. All right? He went out and he healed the sick. Okay? He fed the hungry. He raised the dead. He dealt with the problems. Okay? So when we're following him, it's going to look something like that. And it's a daily thing. Okay, so I mean, there are real dramatic cases where these things do happen. I've heard of it today. I mean, not today, but many days I hear about it. Okay, people do get raised from the dead. It's usually in other parts of the world. People get healed. That happens pretty much all over when you pray to him and you really, are seeking him. Demons are cast out, miracles are happening. It still goes on today through Christians. But even if you don't have situations like that, okay, like, well, there's the solution, oh, you let this person get sick and die. Well, did you ever pray over them? Right? My baby died. Well, did you pray? Maybe he'll raise the baby. Maybe not. Sometimes it's better if it's the other way for different reasons. But okay, I mean, they never even try and then they complain. Anyway, but it doesn't have to be something that dramatic. It can be just things that go on pretty much on an average day. Um, you know, some of the examples I'm thinking of in our life when we do these things. Now you have to be, again, walking in fellowship with God, surrendered to him and his will, repented of your sin, okay, or this stuff isn't going to work, obviously. That's the key. That's why I'm always emphasizing that. But when it is the case, you have the love of the Holy Spirit flowing through you. You have the joy of the Lord in you, and people can see that. they see that, oh, something's different about them. And you get different reactions based on that. But anyway, but you are just rolling along like that. And you encounter all kinds of things, and every day might be very different, it might be very similar, but in general, you're showing the love of God to people. And that's the best way to do this, to make your life an offering. You surrender to God every day, in all these ways. It can be small, it can be big, but you're a giving person. It's just flowing. You're not holding things back, like it could be time, it could be care, concern, it could be anything. But one thing is just start with the people in your life. We're all kind of blessed with people in our lives. It's a different situation for everyone, and for some people that word blessed is in quotes, and for some people the quotes are really big. Yeah, that person's a real blessing. Right, right. Okay, so there are all kinds of situations, but you know whatever. There are cases where, yeah, you shouldn't be around them. Okay, there are things like that, but that's a different thing. Just then I would say leave the situation, pray to get out of it. That's another thing. But if this is just the normal kind of everyday situation, maybe it's not the best. You could be happier, but these people, well, they're not Christians. They have their faults, all right? But whatever the role is, let's say you're married, just start with yourself and be the best spouse you could possibly be, right? If you're a parent, be the best parent you could ever be. What would God want you to do, for your child? Love, hugs, and whatever they need, discipline, whatever it is, you just show them that love, every day. Okay, um, whatever your family role is, whatever family members you have, just be the best family member you can to them. All right, I'm not saying be a doormat, let them take advantage. Some of this involves putting up boundaries and being assertive and bold in some cases. That's the best thing you can do in that case. Sometimes, it depends. But, it depends. You just have to learn how to navigate this and balance all these things. But in general, be the best that you can in all these ways. If be the best friend you can to the friends you have. And I don't worry about it so much. I have had friends like that too, where it feels like it's not returned. You do things, you do favors, you bless them, you whatever, give them a gift, whatever it is, you listen to them, whatever it is, and it feels like it's kind of a one-way street. I know, like, I've been in that kind of relationship often enough. I see that problem. But like this most recent example I'm thinking of, I'm not worried about it. I'm not upset about it. I don't, I'm not all bent out of shape over it. Like, some people, they get that way. It's just, whatever. I mean, I'm not one of these keeping an even score on every little thing. Well, their present was probably worth, $10, and mine was worth 20 or 15. That's not fair. I'm not that person, okay? But I'm not uptight about those things. All right. But there comes a point where you see they're really just using you and they don't really care about you. You know, it's all about them, that kind of thing. And, okay, I'm not going to be bitter about it. I just let it go. And, all I can say is, we all answer to God for ourselves individually. You don't always notice things, but, I did everything I could to be a good friend or family member, and in this case or in that case, a wife or mother, whatever it is. That's all you can do. And I'm not upset about it that, things happen and it doesn't go the way it should go. You just move on and that's it. So you forgive, and they need to, they need help in ways like they need to be, let's just put it this way, more transformed into the image of Christ, right? That may come. They may repent, get right all the way. Great, but there's nothing, I can't control that. But I'm happy to do good. Let's just leave it there. That's it. There'll be people who will take advantage. We don't always know it's gonna end up like that, but you know, when you have the Holy Spirit, you just have this forgiveness and you don't get bitter about these things. It just flows outward, and you don't worry about it. Some will fall on this kind of soil, some will fall on that kind of soil. That's just how it goes. The same thing happened to Jesus. Um, there are people who it just doesn't get anywhere and it seems wasted, but the thing that's not wasted is you still did a good thing. You still did the right thing. And at the end of the day, that's always going to be what matters. So that's all. So, anyway, on top of that, I mean, even just strangers, just be kind to strangers all the time. I mean, you never know anyway what that person's going through, but there's no reason to be unkind, um, or people you run into on your everyday path of life. It can be a waitress, it can be a gas station attendant, I mean, whatever, but just be nice, be friendly. You never know. That smile can make all the difference. And just whatever it is, I mean, it could be whatever the situation is, the people, just that's it, be helpful, be friendly, be kind, be generous in ways. There are all kinds of ways to do that. Share the gospel, of course, do that. They might need you to pray for them. You can, just ask, like, just start talking. Uh, You'd be surprised. I mean, if you run into a stranger and, you just be open and you'll never know, like, a smile can lead to a comment, it can lead to a conversation, and they might share something they're going through, and you might have the perfect advice for them. You can offer to pray for them. You can, something offers some kind of help. You can give them the gospel, right? That's always a yes. So you never know. I mean, you never know what'll come out of that. And that's what I mean by being available, like make your life an offering. People are so busy. And I know I get there too, but they get so busy and it's just always about me, and they never stop to notice the people, just people around them that God has put in their path, maybe for a reason. Okay, so we all have just this path in life, and we don't always know why. Sometimes it takes twists and turns, and there's certain people there, and I just think, well, God has put those people in our path, and those are the ones, that we are supposed to minister to. And that's it. I mean, I think a lot of times, oh, I would love to have everybody reach everybody, with the gospel, and have everybody hear, like, one of my videos or whatever, read the Bible, whatever, just hear that. But you can't reach everyone, but you can reach someone. And, those are the people that are in our path. I mean, that's all we can do. We can try to get more people around and reach them, but it doesn't always work. So just whatever people are there, just do that, and that, towards them. Like, just try to do all that. And that's it. Like, people, as I said, they get so busy, they get so self-focused, and they become blind and insensitive to not just the world around them, but the people in their path. So when we're out and about during the day, especially at this time of year, and you go to a store, and whatever you're looking for, a Christmas card or something, and it's just so good to notice the people that are there. And if a conversation strikes up somehow, maybe it's an opportunity that God put there. We need to make the most of it, take the opportunity, take advantage of that. And you never know. You reach out to people, and you never know. You might be the one person that made all the difference for another person on that day, and you had no idea. This has actually happened to me. Okay, like, I shared this in another video. I don't want to get into the whole thing, but just by stopping and talking to someone and taking the time, and I encouraged the person, and yeah, I need a Kleenex. But I found out later, they told me, that was the day I had, like, they would have taken their life that night. I had no idea, okay? And they told me later it was my conversation that stopped them, okay? And I wasn't there by accident, okay? I was there because it was like God put that place in my mind. I went to that place that afternoon, and that's when I was going to go somewhere, okay? That place popped in my mind. I was just thinking, where should I go? I had a time off, So, okay, that place popped in my mind. So I went there. I ran into this person who I know. I hadn't seen them in a while, but I knew them. And just ran into them right there at that spot that popped into my mind, okay? And I had a conversation, and I had that feeling later, like that night, it was revealed to me, because that's how it works, that's what she was going to do. And I, was able to, you know, intervene, let's just say. And later, it wasn't until, I don't know, she just waited, and maybe it was a year later, even a couple of years later, she told me that whole thing. That's what happened. She was going to do that. And I was me coming along and having that conversation was what turned it all around for her, and that's what stopped her from doing it. And that confirmed what God told me about it, that that's really what was going to happen. And so I knew, he had put me in her path, and, that's how it works. And something like that, and you'd never know, a little thing like that could make all the difference. That woman wouldn't have been there later. So you never know. See, you just have to be like open and available. And that's what it means, when you do this. And yeah, I get emotional, but I mean, I'm human. I mean, you'd have to check my pulse if I didn't need a Kleenex right now, right? So anyway, every time I think about it, this happens. But okay, so you need to. This is what I mean, like making yourself, your life, an offering. You make yourself available. You make time for these things. And I know we don't have all day, okay, I know, but something, sometime, you can just start with one day, let's say on your weekend, on your days off, just pick one day and say this, and pray about it, pray about it in the morning. Like, God, I want you to use me in some way today for your will. Just guide me in a way, put me on a path in some way to do some kind of ministry, to help someone in some way today, and be ready. It's probably going to happen. Okay, so anyway, that's how it works. And you know what? It's so wonderful. It's such a beautiful feeling. If you are like me and you crave meaning and fulfillment in life, okay, there's a purpose for you. You're not just floating around here aimlessly. This is the thing, okay? Just do this and you'll see. You're going to love it. Okay, so I think I said everything I was going to say about this. But that's the message here. Our life is an offering, and just every day you possibly can do this, and see. Okay. All right. Well, God bless you. Love to you. Keep seeking Him, and I'll be back in a few minutes for the next video.